Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than anticipated. I was originally going to put up a film review for Drumline, and I realized that I was taking so many creative freedoms and going for so many jokes that it was way too different than the show that I currently put out. It was less me commentating on the business of podcasting or entertainment or comedy, and more just me trying to be funny myself. So instead, I'm just going to talk about a little bit about the role of producing, some of the judgment calls that you need to make that are real tough, and that are even tougher when you're just a team of one person. Welcome to Catching You Up with
Nadav. It's so great.
Today's episode is executive produced by David Finkel. Without their big baller support, I wouldn't be able to be putting out episodes like this as consistently as I do, even though this is kind of a crazy thing. I was not expecting to record this episode like this. But if you would like to become a supporter and an executive producer of the show, you can go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. Now's a good time to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So let me talk a little bit about what being a podcast producer is like. When you first start, you're a one-man show. You're doing everything on your own. Things come out. Some things fall through the cracks. And you develop systems so that those mistakes can't happen again. And as the team gets bigger and bigger, you develop more systems to keep mistakes from falling through the cracks. So in the beginning, I had a whole bunch of different mistakes that were definitely my fault. So much that, it eventually became a bit of the show where, Nadav, the big old dum-dum did XYZ and, this is messed up or that's messed up. And, I take full responsibility for that. If I fuck something up, I'm not waiting for someone to realize that I fucked up. I'm going to say immediately, hey, I just dropped the ball here. This is what we're dealing with. I'm thinking of these possible solutions that we could do. What do you think? Because I've also seen people that just avoid blame, try and throw other people under the bus. And that works. That works as a strategy. But I'm someone that really likes to be able to sleep at night. And I can't blame other people for my mistakes for that. But I am also very comfortable jumping on the grenade for other people. Sure, so, some misspelling happens in a title. Something weird happens in the description. Some video gets cut off earlier than it should have. And as someone that's managing a group of people that's consistently putting out podcasts week after week where the main goal is to never miss an episode, I'm not letting anyone on my team go through the public humiliation that I've already started developing calluses for. It already sucks bad enough to make a mistake, but having your mistake being publicly seen by the world is a whole other level to that. And that's not something I'm comfortable exposing my team for. I need them to focus on doing good work and also to know that you're allowed to make mistakes. You're a human. I wouldn't expect you to not make mistakes. Once you start making the same mistakes twice, that's where you start, getting really fucking yelled at. But I'm not letting my boys know what this heat feels like. It sucks if you're not used to it. It sucks if you are used to it. So there are going to be technical mistakes that happen during a show, and you're going to try and figure out how to fix them before the episode has to air. And when you have a big team, that's much easier to fix. So other than the technical problems that might happen during a show, maybe something gets said where it's like, oh geez, I don't know how that's going to be reacted to publicly. Every single big podcast that you've ever been a fan of has absolutely deleted things out of their show. Either the guest said something that they were uncomfortable with, one of the hosts said something that they felt uncomfortable with, and the last thing you want is for someone to come on your show and be like, it's dangerous to be on there. Like, if I accidentally say something, they're not going to take it out, and being on there is a risk. So although it would be good exposure, it's just not worth it. And that's not the environment that you want to create for your guests, for your hosts, for what you would call on-screen talent. And sometimes the idea to have something removed comes either during recording, where you'll say something and then immediately you'll be like, actually, that was weird. Can we remove that? Sometimes it will come after recording, where a couple hours later you'll be like, shit, you know what? I said something that I really just don't think is going to be responded to well. Can we please remove that? Of course we can. We can remove anything that you think might make you look weird or sound weird. And it's not only a rarity that, parts of a podcast it'll get lifted or deleted, but full episodes will get scrapped for just reasons where it's just the one talking point that gets weaved in throughout the entire episode is just impossible to remove. So the safest thing that you can do is just get rid of the entire episode. That's definitely calls that I've seen been made. And unfortunately, that is a call that I had to make on my film review of Drumline. Now, I'm not deleting it from my hard drive. I'll keep it. But I just realized it's just, we'll ease into that stuff. Because I'm not trying to be a funny person on catching you up with.
Nadav, it's
I'm just trying to give you the hardcore
unconfirmed news.
And what I was going to give you just was not that. And I will give you that once we're ready. It's just, I just don't think it's ready yet. So, of course, I mean, there's a whole bunch of mistakes that I've jumped on that weren't actually my mistakes. But why don't we talk about some other mistakes that definitely were my mistakes? I mean, how could we forget that time that I accidentally deleted that episode of YMH with Taylor Tomlinson? Whoops. Really didn't mean to fucking do that. That was really fucking, holy shit, was I having a heart attack. I remember I forget what it was that I was trying to do. I think I was deleting a previously old version of an episode that we found a mistake in that hadn't gone live yet. And instead of deleting the one that hadn't gone live yet, I accidentally deleted the week previously. And that's how that happened. And when I pressed the button, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I remember I immediately going to the lobby. I think there's even Ring camera footage of it that we played on YMH where I tell Josh Zolo, holy shit, dude. I just did the dumbest fucking thing I've ever done in my life. I could have easily protected myself and not make myself look stupid. But I don't believe in that because I'm not afraid to look stupid. And deleting that episode was probably the dumbest I had ever felt in my life. Yeah, let's call it top three dumbest ever I've ever felt in my life. And then after that, I immediately called Tom and I told him what happened. And I was like, look, man, we could just like re-upload it. We could turn it into a bit. We could fucking give me a fucking lashing on the next episode. Like, let me tell you, I feel so fucking stupid. I remember there was one time I was on set. This was earlier in my career. I was something called a DIT, which I still don't even really know what it. I think it's a data ingest technician, or at least that's what it meant back then. Essentially, movies were recorded on, let's call them SD cards. And the SD cards would get full. You'd give them to the DIT. They'd back them up onto hard drives. And then once that was done, they would give the drives back to the camera department. And it would just be a back and forth swap throughout the entire day like that. And I remember there was one day I was doing a swap. I think it was one of my first gigs. I was giving an empty SD card to the camera guy. And I see him going through the menu. And he is hitting buttons. And it says, do you want to reformat? And he hits yes. And it goes, are you sure? And he hits yes. And then you just see the progress bar. And then I just see his eyes light up. And he goes, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like, what? He goes, well, you're probably not going to see me tomorrow or for the rest of the shoot. I'm like, why? He goes, I just deleted the last hour of footage that we filmed. So he pretty much just cost the entire production a couple hours. Like a couple scenes that we had in the can are now just gone. And I saw that on his face. I was like, oh, I'll let you put out that fire. And I just like went back to my station and they figured it out. But things like that happen. Fuck ups happen all the time. I mean, something that was much lower stakes, and this was actually one of my funnier fuck ups. But I remember when I was an assistant editor, I was working at this ad agency. And, an assistant editor's job is to assemble on whatever editing software you're editing on and organize everything for the editor so that they don't have to worry about organization. They just have to worry about creativity. So I was being asked to find all this footage online, all these different types of sound effects, cheering, all different kinds of cheering where it's like just roaring of like stadiums and stuff. So I'm looking through our sound libraries And I'm just like listening to it for a couple seconds. Yep, that's cheering. Listening to it for a couple seconds. Yep, that's cheering. That's cheering. That's cheering. Got it. And I send over like 20, 30 sound effects of the thing that they requested. And after about an hour of handing it off, I just start hearing laughing coming from the editor's room. And I'm like, that's probably not good. I mean, maybe it's good. And then they're like, Nadav. And I'm like, no, that's not good. And I come in, I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you found these sound effects for us, right? And I was like, yeah. Did I get you enough? Should I find you more? And they're like, oh, no. You found a ton. But did you listen throughout all of these, like, before you sent them over? I was like, I spot checked them. Like, I listened to the first couple seconds and then kind of listened throughout. And then they're like, did you listen to this one? And they start playing it, and it's a crowd cheering, and it's about 5 seconds of that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, that was a good one. And literally right where I would have stopped listening, Hitler starts delivering a speech. And what I had done was give my editor sound effects of a Nazi rally to use, I don't know, in some GoPro commercial we were working on or something like that, something for Red Bull. I don't remember. But I was just like, oh, fuck. Glad that didn't make the cut. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that mistakes happen all the time. Sometimes the magnitudes are small. Sometimes the magnitudes are big. Let me tell you about a slightly bigger mistake that you guys didn't know about. I believe this was YMH Live 5, the one that we did in Florida with Duncan Trussell. I think this was the first time that we were going to do a big production outside of our own studio. We had two different switchers. We had a main audio switcher and a backup audio switcher. And they were both recording so that if any one of them failed, one of them was going at all times and we were safe. What we didn't plan was that they both shorted at the exact same time. And they just went out during the show. Me and my team are just looking at each other like, what the fuck? Literally, we're scrambling, just like, what the fuck? How do we fix this? We're asking people if they have thumb drives on them. Like, we figure out, like, oh, okay, well, all right, we still have the data on this one. We could just reformat this backup one, load that back in, start recording as soon as possible. And, like, we just started recording, and that was towards the end of the show. And we weren't 100% sure that we had all the audio for the first 90% of the show. So we start wrapping the show, and we are offloading media. We are trying to figure out what the fuck happened, what we have, what we don't have. And what we ended up finding out was that there was a gap of 1 minute and 19 seconds during the heavy segment that we didn't have audio for. And that was all that was lost. It was absolutely terrifying. I couldn't sleep that night. And as we're wrapping up the show, this is a live audience. So people are coming up to me at the end of the show asking for pictures and like fucking autographs from a podcast producer, which is great. I can't believe that people want that. But they're literally asking these things from us as we're scrambling and putting out fires and doing damage control and figuring out if we actually lost anything, and if we did, how much we lost. I still have fucking nightmares about it. And that's the thing about being a producer, is that a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's just prepping for shows. No, homie, it's putting out fires. A producer doesn't have one job. A producer has every job. If a mistake happens, it's the producer's fault. I feel lucky that that's all that we lost on that, but that's a common thing, especially in a live environment. Things go wrong all the time. But look, that's why this episode is probably not as finely polished as normal, because I just had a judgment call. Sometimes you just get a gut feeling and you're like, we got to throw an audible. But there's definitely one thing that you can always count on. We don't miss uploads. Sure, maybe it'll be a little different than what you're used to, but we don't miss uploads. Like to hope to think that I at least shared some funny stories. Maybe I made you laugh a little bit on the true nature of what mistakes look like and how they're dealt with in the industry. Most of the time, the audience has no idea that a mistake happened. There's a lot of things you could do to cover your mistakes. And then there's other things, like I remember, what was it? I think this was during Theogate around episode 500. We had Ethan and Ela Klein on, and they were like, hey, ask us about Theo. And then we'll just make like a really weird bad cut, and then we'll all start laughing, and it'll look like a mistake, and it'll just up the stakes for when Theo actually comes on. So sometimes you play into mistakes too, but that's all I got for you. But that's all I got for you this week, guys. I'd like to thank everyone that you're seeing their name on the screen right now. Without their help, I wouldn't be able to put out these episodes as consistently as I do. If you would like to support me and support the show, click the Patreon link in the description below. And while I have you, comment, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. This has been a doozy. It's been a doozy of a 24 hours. Let's fucking go. It doesn't matter if I have to go to the ER or if I think that what I'm about to post in less than 12 hours is tasteless. Decisions are going to be made and uploads are going to go up because I said it before and I'll say it again. We don't miss uploads.